this shared. So welcome to the Community Financial Empowerment Certification, CFPB Toolkits training. This is a level 2 training as a part of the Community Financial Empowerment Certification Program. So some quick logistics. Who am I? My name is Joseph Cecil, and I'm the Financial Empowerment Coordinator for the Office of Financial Empowerment underneath the Office of Resilience and Community Services. Part of that position, I get to help coordinate the Community Financial Empowerment Certification Program, and we help to, discuss topics, tactics, and strategies for the frontline people out there assisting the people of our city. And we offer 2 levels, level 1 and level 2. Level 1 I'll go over at the end. But today we're here for a level 2 training, which focuses on more specific topics and curriculums. If you have not already, please remember to put your name in the chat as a form of a sign-in, since we are in this virtual world now. So we are scheduled from 10 a.m. to noon. It is always my intention to get you out of here as soon as possible, but we do have a lot of material to go over. And just as housekeeping, if you could please keep yourself muted, but I do welcome questions, comments, anything like that. So you can drop your question into the chat. I will do my best to keep an eye on that, or you can just unmute yourself. So we will get started here in a second. So what is the CFPB? Anyone know what it stands for? Anyone know what the CFPB stands for? What do y'all think? Well, there's got to be at least some guess out there. It stands for the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. It is an agency that was created in the aftermath of the Great Recession by the Dodd-Frank Act in July of 2010. And it actually had been proposed back in 2007 by then Harvard professor and current member of Congress, Elizabeth Warren. The CFPB was created to provide a single point of accountability for enforcing federal consumer financial laws and protecting consumers in the financial marketplace. As defined by Dodd-Frank, their goals and tasks are to write rules and supervise companies and enforce those consumer protection laws. The main one is to restrict those unfair, deceptive, or abusive practices that take advantage of consumers. They take consumer complaints, they promote financial education, they research consumer behavior, and they monitor financial markets for new risk. Their main 3 overall tasks, as they sum up, is the first is to empower. They create tools, answer questions, and provide tips. They then enforce, they take action against predatory companies and practices. And they educate. They encourage financial education and capability all throughout the lifespan. Their focus areas tend to be towards mortgage lending and servicing, credit cards, debt collecting, private student lending, and a little payday lending. So in terms of enforcement, they have in the past have ordered American Express to refund an estimated $59.5 million to more than 335,000 consumers for illegal credit card practices. They ordered GE Capital Retail Bank and a subsidiary to refund up to $34.1 million to potentially more than 1 million consumers who were victims of deceptive credit card enrollment tactics. They ordered the country's largest non-bank mortgage loan servicer, Ocwen Financial, to provide $2 billion in principal reduction to underwater borrowers. And overall, they've returned nearly $12 billion to more than 30 million consumers cheated or mistreated by financial companies. So what are these toolkits we're going to go over today, among other things? The CFPB have released a few colorful, compact booklets that service providers can use with the people they're serving. They contain simplified tools that are used in a pop-out manner so you can make copies and reuse them over and over again. The four topics at this moment are behind on bills, dealing with debt, making credit work for you, and building your savings. So the three we're going to look at today are behind on bills, credit, and savings. So let's start looking at a couple of those. I'll stop sharing this PowerPoint and we're going to switch over. All right, can everyone see this okay? Yes, okay, perfect. Well, before I continue sharing that, one thing I do want to point out is that with these pop-out tools, if you can see my camera, they are meant to literally fold out and you can make copies of them. So they are literally a pop-out toolkit. All right. So this is the Behind on Bills toolkit. So the first thing they look at is an income tracker. Where does all my money come from? And in your pop-out toolkit, you're going to see we've got the different areas people may bring in income, bring in their money, along with a weekly tracker. One place you may want to put additional here is, tips if they work in the service industry. What about untaxable income? Side hustles. Those are on the rise recently. Maybe have a discussion here on how are we accessing this pay? Are we doing it through a check casher or a payday lender? Do we need to get them connected to a financial institution? You can also discuss, making sure they understand gross versus net pay. Understanding taxes and deductions, what's coming out, what should come out, and then just understanding those allowances. If they need to have more allowances in their paycheck so they take more home now, it's important that they understand that. So naturally, once we know how much is coming in, we need to know where is it going. And this is one of my favorite tools to talk to people about, the spending tracker. Again, you've got all these different areas and you got your weeks. What you want to look at is, look for habitual spending. That's one of my favorite things to try to look for. We're all guilty of habitual spending. It's something that's part of our daily routines and habits that we don't tend to actually think about how much we're spending. So for instance, when I first started volunteering on my work team, I was told we report every morning at 8 a.m. and I just graduated from my bachelor's degree. I was taking master's night classes and I had not seen 8 a.m. in 5 years. I did not know what it looked like. So what do you all think I had to go get every morning to help wake up? What do you all think? Give me some guesses. I see coffee. Coffee is no good for me. Coffee does not sit well with me. Everyone is saying coffee. Caffeine is correct. See, Red Bull. There we go. Those energy drinks, correct. There's a Thornton's on the way to my on-ramp. Stop there every morning, get an energy drink and a snack, and head to the office. But about 3 months into volunteering, I was pulling into that gas station. I got used to the sleep schedule, and I'm wondering why I'm there. Well, that's because that was part of my habitual spending. And we're all guilty of it, but it's not something that's a problem. You just want to make sure you know how much you're spending. Also want to make sure you're not turning needs into wants. And what I mean by that is we can overspend on a need and therefore make it a want. Think of things, we usually do this with like food and clothing. One of the most infamous ways we do that is we've got food at home, but what do we go and do all the time? We eat out. We've just doubled our food spending bill. Also try to look at, the financial world used to have a quote they've taken from me. It used to say, beware of the painless swipe of using a credit card or a debit card. Now it's the painless insert, and that just doesn't sound right. It just sounds creepy. But there's truth to that. We will spend more on a card than we will with cash. So you do need to be aware of that. Even though in this pandemic world, I know cash spending is still a little bit iffy. You do want to mix it up and do have some cash spending because it does limit you. I also realize we are no longer a pen and paper world, so you may not want to deal with these paper spending trackers. They do have tech tools out there like mint.com that will do it for you. So once you've kind of done this, you can look at budgeting. You've got how much money we take in and how much goes out. Why do people fear budgeting? Why do y'all think? Give me some reasons why people fear budgeting. What do y'all think? They don't want to hear it? Yeah, yeah, true. What else? The math? Yeah, I hate math. Don't get me started. Well, I love the tech. They do it for me. They don't want to stick to it. That's correct as well. There are many reasons people fear budgeting. I like to narrow it down to something very simple. You can have all these pieces of paper and spreadsheets and all that. At the end of the day, a basic bare bones budget is just these last 2 pages. How much money comes in and how much goes out. You can sit down and divide it out amongst categories, but at the end of the day, it's a very simple math problem. What comes in minus what goes out. So speaking of kind of a budget, is next we've got a bill calendar. And this is one that can help save someone from, dropping below water, getting underwater during their month. It's just a very simple, I love this tool. It's very simple. Just make a copy of a calendar and you mark when those bills are due so they don't surprise you. You see they're coming up. A big key here also is to talk about, when does my money come in? Does that clash with when a bill comes in? If someone's getting paid the first and third week of every month, but a lot of the bills are coming in week 4, they might be tapped out by the time those bills come in. And then we're getting hit with late fees and all these other fees. Well, one of my favorite quotes when facilitating this kind of information is, if that company that they owe money to doesn't know there's a problem with them paying on time, they just don't know there's a problem. Reach out to them, talk to them, have the person talk to them about this issue. A lot of them will work with them to reschedule their due dates. At worst, they won't talk to them, or they'll just tell them the due date sticks, but you won't know until you have that conversation. Also, make sure people understand the difference between due date and postmark date. Due date is absolutely when the money needs to be there. Postmark date is just when it needs to be in the mail. If you go the tech route, like a mint.com, they will look through your accounts and give you bill reminders. So a big thing too with like a bill calendar is trying to avoid those large periodic payments. Whether it be like the holidays or back to school, you can break that down by making payments to yourself in those months we don't have those bills. So once we've kind of got this down about how much money's coming in and where it's going, now we can start to look at goal setting. So this is a very simple tool. It's just exploring with the person you're working with. What's something they're proud of? What's one promise they're going to make? One thing they'd like to change, and what's that dream? And here's where I like to mention asset building, though it has these huge goals, these huge items. As big as they are, should be broken down into frequent check-ins. Short-term goals to long-term assets. It makes it that much more realistic and easy. And we've all heard the term, make these goals smart. I'm sure it's all burned into our brains what SMART stands for, but specific, measurable, attainable, reasonable, and time bound. Also, a big thing here is let the client decide where they want to go. That's the key. What can happen if we get the client to where they want to go and we try to push them further? What can happen if we try to push someone further than where they want to go? What do you all think can happen? We have got an answer of disengage. They give up. They won't do it. Yeah, you can actually get pushback. They can actually end up worse off than where they were. So just keep that in mind. Also celebrate and reinforce. If that's something part of what they're proud of, celebrate and reinforce that. That's key. Also, at this point, maybe this is where you look at recommending someone to a financial coach. For those who don't know what those are, financial coaches are uh, a newer tool in the financial empowerment world. They really work on helping people set goals and reach those goals, and it's more relationship based. Their whole focus is not on teaching specific material, but making sure people correct behaviors and better understand their actions. Here locally, we have the Excel Lou-Rate network for that. You can find that on a variety of websites. The primary goal they're working with there is towards savings. So the never-ending question of how can we get extra money out of what we're doing? Let's talk about some of these. So with skills, this is where we got to make a differentiation between personal and physical assets. When we think about assets, a lot of people think about the physical, the home, the car, cash, things like that. But the real assets to focus on are the personal assets, somebody's education, their skills, their network, because those personal assets help build the physical assets. So that's where we're looking at those skills. And I love skills because they can create untaxable income. Those side hustles, you know, that's been on the rise lately. Just doing something that you can make some quick cash. Also, a great challenge was the 1 year closet challenge. Go around someone's home or apartment, something you have not used or worn in a year, set it in the middle, and it's now your job to sell it. With fees you can avoid, utilities you can reduce. One of the best things here is talking to a retention specialist if you just don't like what you got. Because those retention specialists, their whole goal is to keep you with the company, and sometimes they will offer you a mighty good deal. And also, don't be afraid to comparison shop. Plans you can change. Try to end that nickel and diming system of subscriptions we all tend to be a part of that we just let keep going. We never end them, but every month they're taking that $10 from us. There's a great app out there called Trim that will look at your subscriptions and let you know which ones, what subscriptions you have, and you can make it that much easier to get rid of them. What are habits we can change? For a lot of us, that's stopping at the gas station. That's where we're giving into a lot of those habitual spending. Just things like that. I love this tool because it's got so many different things you can discuss. So here's a very interesting discussion is on prioritizing bills. How do I make tough choices in tight months? And this is a great activity for really just narrowing down what we need to focus on. We've got the focuses on things I need to keep or get a job, transportation, uniform, a huge one right now, childcare, insurance I need to pay for. Insurance is probably the least understood, rarely utilized, but arguably most essential part of someone's financial plan. 90% of Americans actually carry the wrong types and amounts of insurance. And of course, we need to focus on things to stay housed, to keep utilities connected. And then, of course, we don't want to forget obligations. We need to pay, whether they be anything from court ordered obligations to just debt. But with your priorities, the big thing are the four walls. That's your food, your shelter, your clothing, and transportation. As we all know, those should easily be the top priority. We need to have debt as a factor in here too, because that can just be a huge drain on someone's balance sheet and wealth. And then just look at, what matters most to this person we're working with. And let's say we get to this point, how to deal with a debt collector. Let's hope we never get to this point, but if you're working with someone who has been contacted by one, there are certain things they should do. The number one first thing is demand written verification of that debt be sent to them. In today's world, debt is bought and sold daily for pennies on the dollar. And the person whose debt it is does not have to be notified when that debt is sold. So if someone reaches out to them claiming they own debt in that person's name, they have no clue because it's bought and sold daily. Also, there are scams out there. A debt collection company can request the credit reports of anyone in certain zip codes who has a collections account on their credit report, and they can reach out and act like they own that debt. But that's why you demand written verification. By law, if they own that debt, they have to send you written verification that they own it. Some other rules underneath the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act include that they can only contact the person who owns the debt and owes it, and they can only contact that person between 8 a.m. and 9 p.m. They cannot call that person at work. They cannot harass, oppress, or abuse them. And a big thing they'll try to do is tell lies. A big one they use is that they're going to arrest you, have you arrested for it. And they can't do that. The big thing is why they do that is they don't expect people to know these rights. They expect people to be ignorant of them. But now we know, and now we can educate people and make sure that these debt collectors are not harassing and abusing people. If you're working with someone who does have issues with a debt collector violating these rights, the first place to go is to report them to their state attorney general's office. Then you can look at the Federal Trade Commission and the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau as well to lodge complaints. So let's say this person does own your debt. The best recommendation is to settle. Most of the time, you're going to be able to settle for less than what you actually owe, because remember, like I said, they're paying pennies on the dollar. They're not paying the full amount you owe, but they're going to try to get that full amount. If you do settle, get it in writing. Get it written down and agreed to by them. Do not trust them just to follow their word. And if you do pay it off with a settlement, you may want to dangle a little extra in that payment and maybe convince them to get it taken off your credit report immediately. If you're having issues here, Legal Aid Society of Louisville is a great place to turn. So, wrapping up the Behind on Bills toolkit, they have a great section on resources, other resources. If you need help with housing or paying utility bills, as a lot of us know, LIHEAP is out there, the Low Income Home Energy Assistance Program. LG&E has the We Care program. The water company is running their own direct assistance right now, and they will send people out to check pipes and fittings to make sure you don't have a leak somewhere that's unnecessarily driving up your bill. And there's also a utility assistance program that's helping with LG&E here locally. If you need help finding a job, that's where the Kentucky Career Center can come into play. Goodwill and the Louisville Urban League are great community resources. If you need help dealing with debt, Apprising here locally are great financial counselors on pretty much any topic you can think of. Again, as I mentioned, with anything legal, the Legal Aid Society is fantastic. And just general help, are things like Louis Connect. That's a great, fantastic website. For those who don't know about it, run by Family Scholar House, meant to be used through a client's smartphone that will connect them with a nearby resource. You've got Bank on Louisville, which is offered underneath the Office of Financial Empowerment here locally, that can help people get reconnected to banks and credit unions. The Louisville Asset Building Coalition helps with taxes, which we'll go over a little bit later. So that is wrapping up the Behind on Bills toolkit. Any questions, comments, or concerns on this toolkit I did not cover? All right, seeing none, we will transition to the next one. Our next one is one of the more fun topics, which is on credit. All right. Just gonna make sure everyone can see this okay. Everyone see this okay? Thank you. So starting here, we've got a great credit snapshot tool on the inside cover. Going over, what does credit actually mean? And it's our ability to pay back what we owe. It's borrowing now to pay later. And you look at, how am I currently using credit? And please know, on this continuum, never using credit, no credit is worse than bad credit. And that doesn't seem like that should be the case, but it is. Creditors would rather see someone who's had a negative history so they can see where they've had issues than someone who's never had a history. If you've never had a history, you are a wild card and a major risk. And these creditors do not like taking risk. So, excuse me, no credit is worse than bad credit. And in today's world, who is checking credit? Pretty much everybody. Anything to do with housing, renting an apartment, trying to get a mortgage, they're going to check credit. Transportation, buying a car, getting car insurance, even renting a car, they may check your credit. About 47% of employers are doing a credit check as a part of the job process. But please know, if they do a credit check, they have to tell you they're going to be doing one, but the catch-22 is they do not have to tell you whether that factored into the decision to hire someone or not. Cell phone carriers are even checking credit. That can impact your bill or your deposit. Utility companies check credit. And of course, financial institutions do if you're accessing another product. So how do we get a credit report? Well, we have to contact the credit bureaus. There are 3 of them. Can anyone name the 3 credit bureaus for me? All right, we got Equifax as 1. We got Experian as 2. We're missing 1. You got the 2 E's. There's another one out there. We've got Experian and Equifax. What's the 3rd one? TransUnion. There we go. These institutions are private businesses that maintain our credit information and generate our credit scores. They do that because they own the patent on the credit score formula. Please know they do not make credit decisions, they just supply the information. And if you've ever received a pre-approved credit card in the mail, well, that's because as a private business, they have sold your credit information to a creditor who reached out to them. The primary way they make money. So to get a copy of your credit report each year, this is the place to go, annualcreditreport.com, that exact website. That is run by the federal government because by law, you are allowed to have 1 free copy of your credit report from each of the 3 bureaus. Please know if you type free credit report into Google, you could go to 1,000 places before you exactly go to this website. And each of those other websites are going to want you to pay. Also, please know that when we talk about yearly a free credit report, that is not a clock that starts January 1st and ends December 31st. That's a clock that starts when you pull that first credit report, and that clock only hits that credit report. So what I mean by that is if you pull Equifax with someone in January, you just cannot pull Equifax again until January of next year. You pull Experian in June, not till June of next year. It works like that. The year starts when you pull the credit report. Information should be roughly the same on all 3 reports, so you can actually space out these credit pulls and kind of do your own credit monitoring. So when are special times to pull your credit report? Well, before you're about to make a major purchase like a loan. Always check to make sure information is accurate on there. If you think you've been a victim of identity theft, pull your credit report. Just regularly to make sure there are no issues. And if you're about to apply for a job, it's always a good thing to, again, check to make sure everything is correct. And as I said, to make sure everything is correct, you do need to make sure everything is accurate because unfortunately, errors do occur. So there should be these areas on everyone's credit report, these 5 basic areas. You've got your header and identifying information, should be very basic. Name, previous addresses, some employment history. It may not be complete. You may see a place listed here for alias. That just means if you changed your name. Public record information, people should know and recognize these. Again, these are money-related judgments, bankruptcies, tax liens, things like that. These are not things that should surprise you. So with, they may have collections on there. Please know with collections, they stay on your report until you close them out. So you do need to take care of those. Credit account information, these are just the open lines in your name, and then the inquiries. So let's go over some information about these credit reports that people should know. According to the FTC, about 25% of all credit reports have errors. Most of these are harmless, a misspelled address, things like that. But some are serious enough to keep people from accessing credit. And this may include other people's credit being placed on their credit. And unfortunately, it is the job of the person whose credit report it is to spot these errors. That's why it's very important to pull these credit reports and check them. Please also know that a credit report is not a complete history of your credit. It is a 7-year snapshot in time. So as lines, good or bad, are closed, they will rotate off your credit report within 7 years. Bankruptcies, though, they stay on for 10. So in terms of the 7-year rule, with collections, a collections account has to continuously be verified by a debt collector that it's being sought after. But if it goes 7 years without being verified, and they check every month, they're supposed to check in every month that they're still looking for that debt. If it goes 7 years without being verified, it rotates off your credit report. Now, I've tried to ask, though, what about double jeopardy? What if a new debt collector buys that debt and says they're looking for it? Can it reappear on your credit report? And I can't get a clear answer, which makes me think the answer is yes. Please also know that if a collections account rolls off someone's credit report, that does not mean the actual debt has disappeared. That just means it is no longer hindering that person's credit. So when we look at inquiries or credit checks, there are two types, hard and soft. A hard credit check is when someone is looking to access credit. This is, looking to get a loan, looking to get a credit card. And every hard credit hit will ding someone's credit score a couple points. You are allowed to comparison shop, though, when you're looking to get a loan. The credit bureaus are supposed to notice that you are getting a similar type of credit check over a short period of time. They're supposed to collectively term it as one credit check. Soft credit checks are everything else that have nothing to do with credit. Employers, cell phone companies, utility companies, you checking your credit, those do not hurt you at all. So let's say you do have an error. How do we get it fixed? The big thing is explain what's going on. Be clear and concise. Provide documentation as best you can, but make sure it's copies of your documentation, not the original. Also be sure to include a copy of the credit report with the error. And a big thing is send it by certified mail. That is because the credit bureaus have 30 days to respond once you send it in. And by certified mail, you get a receipt of when they receive it. So you know when that 30-day clock starts. If they have not gotten to you within that 30-day window, you have the right to go back and say, I want that disputed line taken off my credit immediately. If someone needs help with that, there's a great dispute letter template right here on the CFPB website. And again, you can also submit your dispute online through most of these credit bureau websites now. So what steps can we take to build good credit? One thing I want to mention here is beware of the credit repair companies. We've seen all of them advertise on street corners, we'll fix your credit. Beware of these people. The majority of them are going to do one thing and one thing only, and that is they're going to dispute everything on your credit report, whether it needs to be there or not. And we've already just gone over how someone can do that themselves. So if you want to take that tactic, no need to pay someone to do it for you. So when we talk about building credit, the first thing is we need to know what our situation is. So we need to get and review that credit report. Maybe look at researching some credit building options. Secured credit cards are a big thing right now for people with no credit or bad credit. With a secured credit card, you're going to put up a line, an amount of collateral that is kept aside while you use that credit card. And that amount you put up is also the spending limit. The card is meant to be open for 12 to 18 months to show that you can use credit responsibly. When the card is closed, if you owe them any money, that money is going to be taken out of that money you set aside. If you don't owe anything, they're going to give you all that money back. It's meant to be a no-risk option for financial institutions. There are also the credit builder loans out there, which are fantastic. That's where you agree to a certain money amount and a term, usually 12 to 24 months, and you're just making payments, which turn out to be nothing more than savings. But they've been reporting those payments as loan payments the whole time, even though you're just saving up money. And just look at establishing good habits for managing and paying bills. I was terrified to get my first credit card because I was afraid I was going to screw it up. But what did I do? I kept the receipts in my wallet, and I only took out those receipts once I paid them off. And so, when my wallet started to get really thick from those receipts, I knew it was time to start paying them off. And also just using credit for just the necessities you already pay for. People get into trouble with credit when they use it for things they don't already cover. So what are some ways to improve your credit score? Probably the biggest thing is just a payment track record. There is no fancy magic wand to building someone's credit bigger than just a regular on-time monthly payment. That is the most impactful thing to building someone's credit is a regular on-time monthly payment. Nothing fancy, no formulas, just that. And doing a track record of that, doing it over and over and over again. With balances, there's an old wives' tale I've always heard that I need to carry a balance in order to, to pay, to build my credit. And that's false. Part of that with your balances is following step number one, which is paying it off every month. Also, beware of that 0% credit card that's out there right now. It's luring a lot of people to switch over and move those balances. Beware of those cards. That 0% a lot of time only applies to that balance you transfer over. And you're going to have to pay balance transfer fees that are massive, both to the place you're leaving and the place you're going to. They can hit any new purchases with the above market rate, and they will look for any excuse to take that 0% rate off. In terms of using available credit, you want to stay below 30% of your available credit limit. This is just credit cards. If you've got a $1,000 credit card, try not to spend more than $300 per month on it. This is just because if you spend more than 30%, it makes it look a little bit like you're too lenient and relying on that line of credit. And then length of credit history. This goes along with the 0% card. Keep open positive lines of credit. Keep them open. You've had a long-term credit card, don't close it. Because remember, the minute you close it, that 7-year clock starts, that it will disappear. Keep open those good positive lines of credit. A great activity to go over is this one. Should I use credit to buy this? As I've just mentioned, credit is great on necessities you already cover. You've got it paid. We get in trouble when we use credit on wants, especially higher dollar wants and things we couldn't already afford. It's a great activity on, what are the benefits of the purchase? What are we thinking about buying? What will it help to accomplish? What could the possible fees be? Remember, but remember though, with the risk of credit is a consequence if you don't pay it on time. That's a huge thing people forget about. Credit becomes a consequence if you don't use it responsibly, as in not paying on time. So an unfortunate discussion to have in today's world is if you're a victim of identity theft. The first one to discuss, though, is not listed in here, and one I always hate discussing, though, is youth and credit. What does a young person have to do if they find credit on their credit report before they were 18? What do they have to do to get rid of it, to get it off there? What do y'all think? So let's say a young person turns 18, they pull their credit report, and they find there's already credit on there somehow. What do they have to do to get rid of that credit? Well, Angela says fuss at their parents. That's partly correct. They do have to do something concerning their parents or their guardians or an adult. It's a little bit more dispute. Dispute is one step of the process, but there's something a lot more serious they normally have to do. And that is they have to file charges because it is technically fraud. And that is one of the worst conversations to have with a young person, is that they have to file charges against that parent, that guardian, or that family friend. So let's say it's an adult. The first step is always to call the companies where the fraud occurred. Get as much information as you can. The next step, and it's a fantastic opportunity to use their resources, is the Federal Trade Commission. They have a whole toolkit on what to do called the Identity Theft Report. They have a great step-by-step on how to handle this terrible situation. You can also place a fraud alert on your credit report, and even an action called a security freeze, which is where credit cannot be opened in your name until you unfreeze your credit report. You will need to call all three of the bureaus and contact them to let them know as well. There is also a new type of insurance out there called identity theft insurance, where you will pay this insurance for someone who will take care of all of this for you if you unfortunately have this happen. So before we get into resources, something unfortunately kind of not covered in here that I'm going to give you some information on is credit scores. Know that they range from 300 to 850. People like to use them as a show of responsibility and reliability. Think of your credit score as going on a road trip. If you've got a poor credit score, you get left at home a lot. You're dangerous behind the wheel of the car and dangerous with that credit card in your wallet. You've got an okay credit score, you're going to be in the car, but you're not driving. You're going to get access to lines of credit, but you're not really going to be able to negotiate terms and conditions. If you've got great credit, you're going to be driving that car. People want to work with you because you pay back what you owe. Also know, unfortunately, there is no reliable way to get access to your credit score. It will not appear on your credit report. Places like Credit Karma are okay if they're the free versions, but you're missing one of the three scores because your credit score is the average of your three credit scores, one from each of the bureaus. So you've got some great resources here from the CFPB among these different demographics. Just know if you need assistance with anything credit, the top people I would refer you to are Apprising. Again, they are those certified credit counselors. They were also the first certified student loan counselors in the area. And then Bank On Louisville also has the credit as an asset curriculum, which can help you build up your credit and learn about credit. And as C. Garrison just mentioned, a lot of banks offer low fee credit access apps. Okay, thank you, C. So that wraps up the credit toolkit. Any questions on credit? All right, seeing none, we will stop with the credit toolkit and hit our last toolkit on savings. Assume everyone can see this okay. So, just like the credit toolkit, it's got this great introductory snapshot worksheet. On savings, money we're setting aside today for use in the future. Dave Ramsey says there should be a hierarchy to our saving, and the first step is an emergency fund. Then we're looking at our retirement accounts, should be about 15% of our income. Then we're looking at goals and assets, and then the large purchases and wants are last, once we've done everything else. When we look at prioritizing what we can accomplish now and later, a short-term savings goal is anything 6 to 12 months. If you're looking here at maybe like an emergency fund, building that up, or a vacation. Medium term, you're looking at 1 to 5 years. This could be something like a car. Then long term is anything past 5 years. Getting a home, retirement, maybe your children's education. With savings, it's a habit. So you've got to build up your savings habits. Start small and work towards those long-term goals. So again, we've got another great goal setting opportunity. Again, I love the, just one thing you're proud of, a promise, something you change, and a dream. But on the back page here, they've got kind of an introductory, this back page on the right side, they've got kind of an introductory savings plan, which leads you into the next activity, which is a savings plan. So when we're looking at savings, it's a habit above all. You got to get into a routine of saving money and setting it aside. And however little, it doesn't matter. Just that you're setting it aside counts. So when we look at a savings plan, we need to know certain things. What's the total amount we need? What's our time? And then what's the amount to save like per week or per month? And remember, break it down as small as possible. Also, setting a deadline makes it more real. People tend to agree to things when you put it further away. There's a famous study in the area of behavioral economics. When asked to dance in front of strangers in a week's time, 81% of people said they would. When that week came and went, only 22% of people showed back up because that was a week away. Anyone will say something yes to something a week away or even further. So, make some concrete deadlines and make them realistic. Also, a great tip down here is think about how often you can set aside money for your goal. And the big thing here is making the frequency fit your life and your lifestyle. You don't have to set aside money every week if you can't. But it's great to have a schedule, to have a habit. So we're gonna skip this section because that's very similar to what we did on the behind on bills. So how much can I save this month? A great tactic I'll always advocate for is to pay yourself first. How many of us are guilty of saying, you know what, I'm going to pay off my bills, I'm going to pay what I owe this month, and whatever's left over, I'm saving? I'm sure we're all raising our hands, right? But what happens? What usually happens when we say that? What do y'all think happens? Well, Pam says life. That's correct. Life does happen. But don't we get to the end and we've spent everything, right? We've spent it towards something. There's nothing left to save. Well, pay yourself first says you're designating a part of your income to set aside before you pay anything else. And it does not have to be a massive amount, but you're paying yourself first. Also, try to look at putting that savings in a separate account from your regular savings account, whatever you're trying to save up towards. Because when money gets commingled, we lose the amount we actually are saving up for. So, again, you've got another part of the savings plan here, which is the weekly timeline. Maybe week one, we're just looking at creating that savings plans and we're doing check-ins week 2 and 3. When you get to week 4, maybe you're looking at how do we need to edit that savings plan for the next month. And again, at the top, I love the tip. Congratulate. Congratulate when things are going well. And if they're not, let's look at what we need to change. It's like one of my favorite quotes I've read about a budget is it's not the budget's fault it doesn't work. It's not the savings plan's fault it doesn't work. It's our fault. We're not doing something correct. So, a lot of the people we may be working with, cash flow, money's going in and money's going right back out. But you've got your cash flow calendar here, just like the previous activity in another booklet. You just make a copy of this, and we're just tracking money week to week. As money comes in, it goes right back out. We're just doing a total at the end of the week, how much we have left. So please know when you've got this going on, try to save money those extra times of the year we can for those times we can't. Things like the holiday period or back to school when we're going to be spending more money than normal. Because let's all agree, those dates don't change, right? Even though they will always come up and surprise us. We can plan for that time. So a big discussion is, where can we put the savings? You've got banks and credit unions. You can look at the differences between the two, and they are different, but they do tend to play off each other with those differences. A bank is a for-profit business, while a credit union is a community nonprofit meant to serve the area. So the pros of a bank are they have more. They have more branches, more ATMs, and they have more products and more services. Because they have more resources and more money, they tend to be bigger. So that means the disadvantages of going with a credit union are they're smaller. less branches, less ATMs, and they tend to have less products. The pros of credit unions are they generally have less fees and lower fees, and they stereotypically handle customer service better because of that smaller size. So no, you may run into people who have issues with check systems if they've had previous issues maintaining a bank account. Um, do know that a lot of financial institutions will still work with people who are in check systems as long as it's not fraud related. Fraud is pretty much something no one will work around. We do have a new offering in the certification program, which may be of benefit to people in this area. We will be offering it to the public for the first time this upcoming year on the national account standards, which is part of the Bank On National Initiative to help get people connected to safe, affordable, and functional accounts. These are accounts that have been vetted by national partners as being safe, affordable, and functional. The Bank On Louisville Start Fresh curriculum covers these accounts locally. Certain account characteristics they all have to have. Their opening deposit has to be $25 or less. Their monthly maintenance fee has to be $10 or less, and overdraft cannot be possible. This is usually achieved by the accounts being checkless. There will not be checks as a part of this account. Here locally, the institutions offering a certified account are Old National, Chase, Truist, the former BB&T. PNC offers 2 separate accounts that are both certified. U.S. Bank, Citi, Fifth Third Bank, and most recently First Financial had an account certified. We will be offering that National Account Standards class this upcoming year. So a great time to start your savings nest egg is tax time, that tax refund. For most people, the tax refund is going to be the single largest infusion of money every year. But the problem is a lot of people see it as something to spend. It's a gift. Instead, earmark it as your nest egg or to help build or improve assets. You can also use it as an opportunity to open a bank account when you get that tax refund. If you're dealing with someone who's having tax issues, the best people to refer them to is the Louisville Asset Building Coalition here locally. They operate our VITA program, the Volunteer Income Tax Assistance Program, run through the IRS, which is free tax preparation for households with $56,000 or less. They can also file taxes up to 6 years previous. So please use that resource. It's a fantastic resource out there. So how can we prepare for those unexpected expenses? One of my favorite quotes I read was, "You can't prepare for an emergency, but you can prepare for how to deal with one." When we talk about an emergency fund, it needs to be liquid, as in it needs to be easily accessible, but it needs to be separate from your regular savings account. Again, savings goals and emergency funds that get put in your regular savings account are liable to be spent. Dave Ramsey says a great beginner emergency fund is $1,000. Ideally, you are recommended to have at any time 3 to 6 months of expenses set aside. This is usually for the big five types of emergencies. What do you think those big 5 are? What are the big 5 types of emergencies? Auto, that's 1. Medical, 2. We got auto and medical. What else? Housing, 3. So we got the big 3: auto, housing, and medical. There are 2 more. What do y'all think? Utilities is kind of covered under housing. The other 2 are anything family or children related and job loss. Those are the big 5: car, home, medical, job loss, and children and family. So just some quick stats on these emergency funds. 60% of millennials will not have the ability to cover $1,000 emergency. And 40% of Americans would need to borrow for $1,000 emergency. So it is paramount to set aside that money. So that wraps up the savings toolkit. Any questions on that before we do some other information on the CFPB? Seeing none, we will go back to the PowerPoint. So, like I said, they do have a fourth toolkit on dealing with debt, but that is very close to the behind on bills. So I chose not to present on it today. You can request these booklets for free on the CFPB website. I believe they come in packs of 50 at a time. And you can request all 4 if you want. The CFPB also offers the Your Money, Your Goals toolkit. It's modular based with sections on goal setting, saving, tracking income, and these other topics. It contains over 40 tools and handouts and is free to download or order a printed copy in either English or Spanish. It can also be requested for free at their website. They also recently created 8 10-minute training snippets from the Your Money, Your Goals toolkit, which focus on these direct topics, which I will send you a copy of this PowerPoint. So for those people asking about the website and everything like that, I will send you a copy of this PowerPoint later today. So you'll have the website, and on this page, if you click on any of these topics, they will take you to those 10-minute snippets. The CFPB also created their financial well-being scale as a free tool to measure an individual's level of financial well-being. You're meant to use the scale before providing services with someone, during service provision, and then at the end. So it begins as a questionnaire with people, answering how they feel about these statements. You then take their answers and determine a total response value using the scoring worksheet, adding up their total number. You then take that number based off their age and how the questionnaire was given, if it was self-administered or if you helped them, to get a number. So in this instance, the financial well-being score is 40. So please notice the financial well-being scale scores a standardized number between 0 and 100 that represents the respondent's underlying level of financial well-being. The number does not have meaning on its own, and most people's scores will fall somewhere in the middle. Extremely low or extremely high scores are uncommon. A higher score indicates a higher level of well-being, but there is not a specific cutoff for a good or bad score. As you use the scale with individuals that you serve in your programs, you may be able to establish benchmarks as well as analyze where they've gone. This is meant to be utilized as the personal tool for individual achievement and progress, not a comparison tool. They also have sites of resources for populations such as the multilingual community and newcomers, college students, the aging population, and service members and veterans. And again, you can find that full list on the website. They even have a webinar archive. And you can request all these documents pretty much all for free at this separate website. So wrapping up, overall, you can learn more about the CFPB at consumerfinance.gov. Thank you all for attending this morning. You will receive the presentation along with a post survey later today. If you need confirmation of attendance, please email me at my email address there. And if you have questions or concerns about the certification program, you can reach out to that same email address. I will hang around for the next 5 to 10 minutes for any other questions or concerns, but thank you all for attending, and you are free to head out.